Jamaica's history is deeply connected to the rise of powerful street organizations known as Dons. In this in-depth documentary-style breakdown, we explore the true history of Jamaica's gangs, from their political origins in the 1970s to the modern-day networks operating across Kingston, St. Catherine, and Montego Bay. Hi, welcome to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us. This video uncovers 1. The rise of the Jamaican Don system. 2. How gangs took control of entire communities. 3. The connection between politics, power, and the streets. 4. A detailed map of gang territories across Jamaica. 5. How today's gangs differ from the past. This is not glorification, this is history, context, and reality. Here is a comprehensive history of the Dons in Jamaica, influential gang leaders and power brokers, from the 1970s to the present, written in the style of a chaptered history book. This account blends political context, organized crime evolution, key figures, and the socio-economic dynamics that shaped their rise and changing roles. Chapter 1, Origins, Political Conflict and the Birth of the Jamaican Don, 1970s. In the 1970s, Jamaica's urban landscape was marked by intense political rivalry between the two major parties, the People's National Party (PNP) under Michael Manley and the Jamaica Labour Party (JLP) led by Edward C. Aga. In poor inner-city neighborhoods, later called garrison communities, local enforcers began to play crucial roles in securing votes and maintaining order for party operatives. These enforcers, known as posses, provided security and muscle in exchange for patronage. Over time, the most powerful among them evolved into figures known locally as Dons, community bosses who wielded de facto authority. The early Dons were often born of political violence and urban deprivation. They were first recruited to protect supporters, beat up rivals, and intimidate opposition voters. Jamaicans adopted the term posse from Western films, but the groups soon became structured criminal gangs with political ties that extended deep into Kingston's poorest areas. Chapter 2, First-Generation Dons and Political Enforcers, late 1970s. One of the earliest acknowledged Dons was Claudie Massop, leader of the Phoenix Gang in West Kingston. Born in Denham Town, Massop gained influence in the late 1960s and became a key enforcer in Tivoli Gardens, a new JLP-aligned housing community. His gang was part of the emerging violent contest between political factions in Kingston. After his death in 1979 following a police chase, the gang would later be reorganized into one of Jamaica's most infamous criminal networks. Another figure of the era was Dennis Copper Barth, operating in Renwick Lodge, who was celebrated in dancehall music and met a violent death in 1978. The period saw gruesome turf wars and political engagement that blurred the lines between partisan activism and criminality, claiming hundreds of lives in contested spaces as Jamaica stoked political animosity between parties. Chapter 3, The Shower Posse and the Don as International Crime Boss, 1980s-1990s. By the 1980s, local garrison Dons had effectively become organized crime bosses. The Phoenix Gang of Massop morphed under new leadership into the Shower Posse, formally founded around 1981 by Lester Lloyd, Jim Brown, Coke with assistance from Vivian Blake. Operating out of Tivoli Gardens, the Shower Posse expanded beyond Jamaica into the United States, Canada and the United Kingdom, trafficking drugs, weapons, and engaging in violent conflict with rival gangs. The Shower Posse's name, possibly from the JLP's shower slogan or its violent reputation for showering bullets, came to symbolize the fusion of political muscle with drug trafficking and international crime. Jim Brown was killed in 1992 during a mysterious prison fire while awaiting extradition, and his adopted son Christopher Dudus Coke assumed leadership. Dudus transformed the gang's influence from purely violent criminality to quasi-governance within Tivoli Gardens, providing social services and security to residents in return for loyalty, and became a dominant figure in both local politics and international drug distribution. Chapter 4, The Don as Community Sovereign, late 1990s-2009. Under Christopher Coke's reign from the early 1990s to 2010, the Jamaican Don was no longer just a gangster, he was a governing authority in his community. Coke invested in social programs, charity events and community infrastructure, earning deep local loyalty and creating a barrier to policing and state intervention. Tivoli Gardens became a symbol of this model, a neighborhood where police tacitly operated only with community consent. It was a period when a Don could be both feared and celebrated, violence and extortion coexisted with community support and political patronage, especially during elections where gangs still helped mobilize votes. Chapter 5, The Crackdown and Fragmentation 2010s. The Jamaican state's long-term efforts to challenge the Don's power culminated in a major confrontation in 2010, when the government agreed to extradite Dudus Coke to the United States on racketeering and drug trafficking charges. His capture triggered days of violent clashes in West Kingston, illustrating just how powerful and embedded the Don had become. Coke was ultimately convicted in the U.S. and sentenced to decades in prison. With the dominant Shower Posse leadership incarcerated, the structure of organized crime in Jamaica changed. The old hierarchical networks gave way to numerous smaller gangs and rival factions, with leadership fractured and localized. Chapter 6, New Dons and Contemporary Gang Landscape 2010s to Present. After the decline of traditional dons like Dudus, a new generation of gang leaders emerged across urban and peri-urban areas. Among them were figures connected to long-standing rivalries, particularly in Spanish Town and St. Catherine Parish. One such leader was Othniel Thickman Laban, reputed head of the One Order Gang, which has maintained influence for more than 2 decades. Laban's operations included extortion, violence, and territorial control, and he was said to have ties to political actors. His death in January 2025 at the hands of security forces sparked significant unrest, showing the ongoing volatility of Jamaica's gang dynamics. Other factions like the Klansman Gang and various splinter networks have also taken root, filling power vacuums left by the more unified dons of previous generations. These groups are often implicated in inter-gang violence, extortion, and community domination, though without the same broad name recognition that earlier dons enjoyed. Chapter 7, The Don in Society, Legacy, Myth and Challenge. Throughout this history, the Jamaican Don has occupied a complex place in society, outlaw and protector, criminal and provider. In many garrison communities, murals and local stories once celebrated Don figures as local heroes, akin to folk figures who provided food security and justice where the state was absent. Authorities have even taken to erasing murals that glorify these leaders as part of broader anti-gang efforts. Academic work shows that Dons have operated not only as gang bosses but as informal authorities, embedded in socio-economic politics and community governance where traditional state presence was weak. This dual role has made efforts to dismantle their influence both socially and politically challenging. Today, policing strategies continue to target gang leaders, but fragmented networks and new forms of organized crime present evolving challenges for Jamaica's security and governance. Here's an updated overview of the current status. Where are they now? Of key figures traditionally referred to as Dons in Jamaica, based on the most recent reliable reporting. Christopher Dudus Coke, former Shower Posse leader. Where he is now. Coke is in a U.S. federal prison, serving a 23-year sentence after his 2010 extradition and conviction on drug and racketeering charges. As of early 2025, his sentence has been reduced by about 17 months under U.S. good behavior programs, and his expected release date is now January 25, 2029. There is no indication he is being deported to Jamaica at the moment. Jamaican authorities have confirmed he won't be among Jamaicans deported from the U.S. in February 2025. Current influence. Coke's direct influence in Jamaica's gang landscape has diminished since his imprisonment. Law enforcement reports suggest uncertainty about any continuing ties he may have to current gangs like the Next Generation Gang in Tivoli Gardens. Othniel Thickman Laban, One Order Gang leader. Where he is now. Killed by Jamaican police in January 2025 during an operation by the Joint Anti-Gang Task Force. Impact. His death sparked unrest and curfews in Spanish Town as supporters protested. Laban's death has left a leadership gap in the One Order Gang, which had been one of the most active criminal groups in St. Catherine Parish. Smaller gang leaders, for example, One Don, Klansman factions. Status of others in the scene. Andre Blackman Brian, former leader of the One Don faction, was arrested in 2018 and later sentenced to life in prison 2023. Members of other gangs like Klansman and its splinter factions are facing trials or incarceration, with several top figures charged with serious crimes including murder, extortion, and weapons offenses. These groups operate in a fragmented landscape, with no single dominant Don across the island today, rather a mix of smaller gangs vying for influence. General situation of gang networks in Jamaica post-2010. After Koch's arrest, the era of a centralized, internationally known Don-like Duttus faded and smaller gangs filled the power vacuum. Law enforcement has responded with arrests. Hundreds of gang leaders and influencers have been detained in recent years as part of strategic anti-gang efforts. Despite that, gang violence and fragmentation continue to impact several parishes, notably St. Catherine and Kingston areas. Here's a current list of active gangs and known territories in Jamaica circa 2025, based on police reports and security assessments. Note that many groups are small, decentralized, and constantly evolving, so the list reflects known major gangs and key territories where they operate rather than a complete enumeration of all groups. There are dozens across the island. Major gangs and territories 2025. 1. Tivoli-linked gangs Kingston, St. Andrew. Tivoli New Generation Shower Posse remnants operate primarily in Tivoli Gardens and surrounding West Kingston areas. This lineage traces back to the old Shower Posse, though influence is more localized now since the 2010 extradition of Duttus Koch. 2. Spanish Town, St. Catherine. The St. Catherine area remains one of the most active gang hotspots in Jamaica with multiple groups operating in different communities. A. Klansman Gang. Historically a large group in Spanish Town with various factions active throughout parts of St. Catherine. B. One Don Gang, a faction of the broader Klansman network also based in Spanish Town and environs, major rivalry with other local groups. Leader Thickman was killed in 2025 but the group persists in a fragmented form. 3. Multiple smaller and localized gangs in St. James. Under Operation Storm 2 policing efforts, at least 13 gangs were identified as focal points in St. James including Montego Bay area. 1. G6 Gang, Salt Spring, Rose Heights. 2. 641 Gang, Salt Spring, Rose Heights. 3. Bloods Gang, Flower Hill. 4. YSF Young Something Force, Bird Hill. 5. KDF Kingston Defense Force, Mount Salem. 6. Downtown Sparta Young Sparta Generation YSG Central Montego Bay. 7. Rebel Gang, Libyan Gang, Flankers Community. 8. YAK, HDF, Norwood. 9. One Don Gang, Mount Carey, some overlap with St. Catherine affiliation. 10. Shmoney, Maroon Town. 11. Bad 13 Springmount. Note: gang names used in police operations may represent sets or organized crews rather than formally branded entities recognized outside law enforcement. Other known gang presence in various regions. Western Kingston and surrounding divisions. While specific gang names may vary, Kingston Western and Central Police Divisions consistently show high gang activity, including turf-oriented crews behind local extortion, shootings, and small arms violence. Other parishes and areas with noted gang activity. There are many more smaller gangs scattered island-wide, particularly in St. Andrew, central and southern areas. Numerous localized crews contest turf in inner-city neighborhoods. Other police areas, example, St. Thomas, Westmoreland, Hanover. Periodic gang groups identified but generally smaller or less notorious than urban counterparts. Overall gang landscape 2025. Police data indicates about 85 officially active gangs island-wide as of early 2025, down from previous years but still spread across all 19 police divisions. Many gangs are small and loosely organized, with a few larger ones retaining local influence. The presence of gangs remains significant in urban poor communities and peri-urban areas, especially in Kingston/St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and St. James. Notes on the gang environment. The names listed above are based on law enforcement designations and media reporting. Many gangs have overlapping or changing names. Jamaica's gang landscape is highly fluid, with groups frequently splitting, merging, or changing territory. Policing strategies have reduced the number of active gangs, but violence and territorial conflicts remain in key communities. Jamaica Gang Territory Breakdown, 2025. 1. Kingston and St. Andrew Corporate Area. Overview. This urban center, covering most of Kingston and parts of St. Andrew, remains Jamaica's most concentrated area of gang activity, with the largest number of active gangs nationwide. A. Kingston Western Division. Hotspots. Tivoli Gardens. Historically gang stronghold, Denham Town, Bacawal area. Activity. Multiple crews and remnants of long-standing groups operate here. B. Kingston Central Division. Hotspots. Rose Gardens, Almond Town, Fletcher's Land, South Side, Tel Aviv. Activity. Dozens of identified gangs, some linked with citywide networks. Kingston Eastern, St. Andrew Central and South. Hotspots. Waterhouse, Tower Hill, Olympic Gardens, Seaview Gardens, Back 2, Payne Land, Whitfield Town, Waltham Park, Riverton. Activity. Among the highest neighborhood gang densities in Jamaica, these areas drive much of the homicide rate in the corporate area. Territory summary. This combined police area 4 accounts for the majority of gang presence on the island, about 64%, far higher than any other region. 2. St. Catherine Parish. Overview. The St. Catherine area around Spanish Town and Linstead has long been a major gang battleground, historically dominated by large groups like Klansmen and its splinter factions. Spanish Town, St. Catherine North. Territory of Klansmen and One Don factions, internal feuds fuel violence. Linstead environs. Recent surge of violent incidents linked to ongoing gang disputes, reported shootings and curfews. Territory indicator. Gang activity here contributes a significant portion of crimes in Police Area 5, the second highest area for gang numbers. 3. St. James and Western Parishes, Montego Bay area. Overview. The St. James Parish, including Montego Bay and surrounding communities, hosts many smaller crews, frequently turf-based rather than centralized under a single don. Key groups and hotspots identified under police operations. Salt Spring, Rose Heights, G6 and 641 gangs. Flower Hill, Bloods Crew. Bird Hill, YSF. Mount Salem, KDF. Downtown Montego Bay, Sparta factions. Flankers, Rebel Gang, Libyan Gang. Territory summary. These communities are part of the wider Area 1 grouping, St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, Trelawney, a significant zone of gang activity in western Jamaica. 4. Other parishes with gang presence. Gang groups exist in every parish, though intensity varies widely. A. Clarendon. Activity. Noted for periodic high violence episodes, sometimes prompting emergency responses. B. Hanover, Westmoreland and Trelawney. Activity. Smaller crews linked with gangs from St. James, known for cross-parish mobility. C. St. Andrew North and St. Thomas. Activity. Extends some influence from St. Catherine and Kingston groups, fewer major localized gangs but present. D. Rural and low-density areas, example. Portland, St. Anne, St. Mary. Activity. Gang density is relatively low compared to urban centers, though criminal networks still move through these parishes. This breakdown works like a territorial overlay tied to official policing zones and known gang areas. A. Corporate area, Kingston and St. Andrew, densest gang territories. B. St. Catherine, major secondary hub with historic Spanish Town activity. C. St. James, Montego Bay, multiple local hotspots. D. Western and rural parishes, smaller, less centralized activity. Notes. 1. Jamaica's gang landscape is fluid and evolving, with groups frequently splitting or rebranding. 2. Many gangs operate across parish borders and collaborate for criminal activity, example, smuggling or extortion. 3. The National Police Force uses police division boundaries rather than parish borders to manage operations against gangs. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media platforms. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment.